All right. Well, welcome to the R&R show. Sit back and relax and enjoy the best little sports show ever. I'm your host, Michael Roope, and this is my co-host, William Rumsey. Hello, William.
Howdy.
All right. We are joined by former Bengal defensive lineman, Jason Buck. Jason, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, you're welcome. I love it. Talking Bengals with some of the great people I was with years ago now.
Absolutely. This Bengals run absolutely has to, evoke some of those good memories from that Super Bowl run that you were a part of back in '88.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I was part of something magical. You know, you think about it, the memories of going back to that season undefeated at home. You know, we'd all just come together as a team, and after the strike here that was miserable for all of us, it's literally like we walked in the locker room in camp and just kind of looked at each other and looked at each other and said, "This is our team. Nobody else is, not the coaches, not the owners." I mean, it was just like the players just owned it, and the leadership on there. Great offensive line, Munoz and Boomer, and we just really linked and came together that year, and everything was magical. Guns N' Roses came out, Welcome to the Jungle, and everything that happened, did happen. And
yeah.
Coming out of that stadium, dude, with Welcome to the Jungle playing, and it was just packed house every week. It was unbelievable experience.
And I remember, I was, obviously around 13 years old during that run. And boy, I remember how magical the city was. It was electric. I mean, everybody was yelling "Hooday!" I don't care where you were, where you're at. Everybody was just amped up for the Bengals.
Oh, they were. Wherever you went, the city was on fire, and we were absolutely the best team in football that year. I still believe it. I believe we beat San Francisco 8 out of 10 times if we play them, and just had a few tough things happen at the night before the game and during the game, to lose Timmy, to shatter his leg, and it was just a heartbreaker, to lose that game, because we were the best team in football. I believe that, and always will, that year.
Yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about that Super Bowl. I tell you what, defensively, you really held that 49er team at bay all game.
Yeah. What was it? We were up 3-0 at halftime, right?
Yep.
I really think, looking back on it, coming to the playoffs, the defense is really what, carried us through, in my belief, through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. It was the defense was really peaking, going into the playoffs, and, we were underrated because we had the number one rushing offense in the, NFL, and Boomer, and a great offense, obviously, just a fantastic offensive line. And James Brooks was just the best of the best. I'd always have, if I picked an NFL team today, I'd have James Brooks on my team, man. But our defense was playing ball, and a little underestimated and underrated, but we were shutting everybody down, just like we did Buffalo before the week, 2 weeks before. And we were confident going in there, and we knew we could stop Montana and San Francisco. So, that was just a battle of a game. And Montana made that great last drive, but yet, they got a great punt return to kind of set it up. And then, 3rd and 20, we had them stopped, and they make that little slant. We kind of blow a coverage on that slant to Jerry Rice on the 3rd and 20, and he gets a first down on the stinking thing, to keep the drive. And, all those little things just, eat at you, because I should have another world championship ring, instead of an AFC Championship ring. But it was great. I mean, me and Jim Scow and Tim Crumrye looking at each other in the huddle. Those are my brothers forever. I love those two men, and I love all my teammates there. It's fun to talk to them. We had a reunion there a couple of years ago. It's like we'd never been apart.
That's awesome.
Talk a little bit about the AFC Championship game against Buffalo.
Oh, man. Just the excitement in the town, like you said, was just unreal. And the playoffs, you moved to a whole different level. You kind of grudged through camp, 6-7 weeks of camp. And back then, we just beat the living hell out of each other. I mean, you could barely walk after a practice, feel your arms from taking so many hits on your shoulders. And now they, it's like cush ball, and they live in a 5-star hotel. And you're like, do you guys ever even hit?
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'd have played for 20 years if I got to play now. But they, to come into that, the town being on fire and the team was just, it was really like the pressure was off, because you win, you go on or you go home, right? And you don't have to worry. It's funny, you go into the playoffs, it's the most exciting time, but yet in a way you don't have the pressure from some of the coaches too. So you kind of you're able to let yourself play like you've always wanted to play, because if you win, nobody says anything. If you lose, you're going home. You don't have to worry about the coach calling you a stupid mother. So it's just for me, the playoffs is just what I've always dreamed of being in. And you go that whole new level. Going against Buffalo, I was against Will Wolford every time I played them, and all-pro offensive tackle. And they had a great team, a great run, great coach, Jim Kelly. And you go out on that field every time, the crowd just going nuts. You couldn't even hear your voices in the huddle, really, screaming to each other to get the signals in and play. And, I just remember, the one play of the game, it was a big play. I set up Jim Wolford really good and was able to beat him on the edge with a hand slap and an outside drive step and take that corner and sack Jim Kelly, and just go nuts, right, with the war dance. Crowd's going nuts, and your family's back home. Everybody in Idaho screaming, me being an Idaho kid, and Utah in the West, and my family, and all that's going through your head as a player because you've been fighting to do it since you're a little kid, and you're in that moment making history, sports history, and it was unreal. The whole game, electric all the way to the end, and stick with you forever.
I can feel the joy of that moment.
Oh yeah. I went nuts. And what's funny is I sacked Jim Kelly again, very similar in Super Bowl 26 with the Redskins.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah, it was good to watch it. I got Jim Kelly in the AFC Championship game, and I got him in the Super Bowl 26 too.
Now, when you sacked him in the Super Bowl, did you whisper that into his ear that this feels familiar?
Dude, I was up and just and I was dancing and going nuts, and my family is up in the stands, and it's just the rage and the elation is going through you. It's so hard to describe it. You're just in a out-of-body experience at the time, so no time to talk to him. But,
So I've got a little question about your origin story with the Bengals. So we just talked to Tim McGee, and he told us that he didn't really know that the Bengals were going to draft him. Now, they took you in the first round. Did you kind of know that they were going to take you?
No, well, I knew I was going in that range in the draft, and I thought Miami and Seattle were hotter on me. It was funny, the teams that were really hot on me, that flew me out and really liked me, at least maybe feel like they liked me and were on me, all said to me that, hey, they were picking in the 20s, and they're like, we don't think you're going to be around when we have your pick. Like, San Francisco flew me out, and I talked with Walsh, and the Redskins talked to me, they're Giants, but then, so I knew. It's just funny, the Bengals never talked to me, never even hinted. I knew I was a maybe there, so I wouldn't say I didn't know, but it was a real shock because Seattle, I knew, had me up on the board. My agent told me Seattle had me up on the board.
Okay.
I was gonna go to Seattle because they were the 18th pick, and Miami was the 16th pick. Miami passed on me, and they took John Boza, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to Seattle. My wife and I are talking, and then Cincinnati calls it out, Jason Boston Bengals. I was like, what?
Yeah, where did that come from?
So they totally, like McGee, they totally took me off guard. They held their, hand close to their chest, and so I guess they didn't want the word out with anybody else. But yeah, that totally blew me away. And my wife, who was a little small town Idaho girl, she turns to me, she's like, where the heck is Cincinnati? She didn't know. She only knew where Boise, Idaho, and Salt Lake City were, I guess. But
I love it.
I did not know.
Tell me this. So after like a decorated college career, when you got selected by Cincinnati, was that a joyful moment for you? Or were you hoping maybe you went somewhere else, or how did that play out in your head?
Well, do you guys want all the truth?
We love the truth.
Hard hitting.
We love the truth.
You want hard hitting truth?
We do want the hard hitting truth.
So when I say this, I loved Cincinnati, Kentucky. That whole area. Fans were fantastic, great community, all that, and my teammates, I love them.
Yeah.
But everybody knows Mike Brown was a hard one to deal with.
Yeah.
And my agent told me before I was drafted, he's like, it was Lee Steinberg, and I thought, well, man, I've got the agent of agents and all this.
Yeah.
I thought, trying to do everything right. I'm just a young kid off the farm. And I'm just so I got this famous agent, and I think I'm in good hands. And I remember him saying to me, there's like 2 teams you really don't want to go to. They're so hard to deal with. He goes, Cincinnati, you do not want to go there because Mike Brown is so hard to deal with. And I'm like, so that's all I knew. And then I'm like, of course, Cincinnati calls me out of the draft. And I'm like, oh man, and it's not community. It's just all about the owner, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do I deal with? And sure enough, I end up in a holdout, which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I don't think, honestly, looking back at it, now as a 58-year-old man, not a 24-year-old young man, I'm like, my agent really botched it, did a terrible job representing me. And Mike Brown did himself wrong too. Because I would just say to him, and he was a hardcore negotiator.
Yeah.
And Mike and Steinberg had his partner call Mike Brown once, and insulted Mike Brown. And he said, I will never deal with somebody's second, hecking hand guy, whatever. He is personally insulted. I'm sitting here in Idaho going, look, I just want to play football.
Yeah.
And I said, and I finally got hold of Mike Brown on the phone, and I tell my agent, I said, look, I don't want a record-setting deal. I just want to get paid less than the 16th player and more than the 18th player.
Yep.
Right. I said, I've worked for this my whole life, but Mike honestly was negotiating to have me the lowest paid player in the first round. I told him that. So finally he put me on the phone with Mike Brown once during the negotiations. And I said, Mike, this is exactly what I said to Mike. I said, I've worked my whole life for this moment. I deserve to be respected. And I said, just pay me less than the 16th player in the draft, and more than the 18th player in the draft.
Yeah.
I don't want some world record, but I just want to be treated fair.
Yeah.
There's more of a respect thing to me than the, $100,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Because back then it was small money compared to now.
Yeah.
And my salary, first round pick back then, was $180,000 my first year.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Can you believe it?
That is nuts.
So I end up in this holdout, which was miserable. I hated it. And I show up in my first practice, and it's like 2 days before we play Indianapolis. I hadn't had one rep in camp. I hadn't had a rep in football since my bowl game, my senior year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm in pads, ready to play my first NFL game in 2 days with, game practice.
Yeah.
So, and then 2 weeks later or 3, we're in the strike in '87. So then I'm out for another 6 weeks, and then I come back and play so my rookie year was just destroyed, and it was a terrible start with the holdout and then the strike. And, it was just, it was a miserable football experience for me. And, some of the veterans made my life really hard. Not all of them, but some of them made my life miserable because they're like, hey, you're making more money than I ever made. You don't deserve it, you stinking rookie.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Coming in. And so it took a good year or two to, win everybody over. Most guys were cool, but there was a few hardcore guys on me.
Yeah.
My coach was terrible, but not LeBeau. I love Dick LeBeau.
Yeah.
I love Dick LeBeau. But Bill Urbanic was my D-line coach, was a terrible person.
I like it. Hey, I like the.
I was telling the truth. So my rookie year was tough.
Yeah, shooting the truth at us. I love it.
Kind of switch gears a little bit. Do you follow the current Bengals team?
Yeah, a little bit, and the Redskins. I follow those guys. Honestly, I'm a little upset with all the kneeling for the flag stuff. It really upset me as a man, and I love the NFL. I grew up with Vince Lombardi and little boy in Michigan watching, the Frozen Bowl, with Landry and who was the head coach and Lombardi. And, I just think football is America, right? I think it's the greatest sport on planet Earth. There's no other sport that can mimic it. It is the great chess game of violence, and it teaches everything that's American, right? Just the grit and individualism and the toughness and just the intelligence and the teamwork. And, you get smashed in the face and bloodied, and you got to get back up and go back and fight again. And it's just, to me, it's America. So I was pretty upset that the NFL let the players bring politics into the game, because I don't think the NFL should have, honestly.
Agreed.
And they should keep the game pure. I think when we go to a stadium, you don't look at white, black, or brown. You don't look at Republican or Democrat or Catholic or Protestant, or we're all there to watch a football game. We're all Americans. We all come there to just love the game and the thrill of victory and defeat and agony of defeat and all that, right?
Yeah.
And keep
Absolutely.
the game pure. And I think the NFL missed an opportunity to unify America versus, cause a little more division there, And so anyways, I was kind of upset and wasn't watching the game as much, but it's still me. I mean, the NFL is my family. It's my blood. It's who I am. I'm an NFL guy. And I obviously I'm watching more now, but yeah, the Bengals, their run this year has been amazing because, it's the first playoff game they've won since I was there.
Yeah. And
so, yeah, and I know how the city just loves it, and the fans deserve it, dude. I told you personal stories of inside the organization and inside management and that kind of stuff. And it's the fans, they deserve a team that wins. And I know how excited they get, and they love it, and how they sell out that stadium, and just this town goes crazy. So this is fun. I wish it was at home, because I'll tell you, Cincinnati does not lose at home.
Yeah.
And it's tough to go play on the road. This is a tough assignment.
Oh yeah. Hey, I want to touch base because we're in a circle of trust and not the honesty. I love it. You got the opportunity to play for Washington. Tell us how big of a difference between Washington and Cincinnati. Some of the luxuries. Because I've heard from other players that I've talked to and we've had on how notoriously skimpy Mike Brown was with even like as much as the locker room towels and stuff of that nature. Maybe tell the viewers at home the difference between the two organizations.
Yeah. Mike, the coach, came in to one of our meetings and said, hey, we tried doing a hit of the week t-shirt this week. And Mike Brown told us if we want to do it, we got to do it out of our own coach's pocket.
That's amazing. That's terrible.
So, we'd come in and, buy Popeyes. We'd all hand in our order to the secretary and, give her $10 or whatever back then and bring in Popeyes for lunch. And I remember showing up at Redskins and we had lunch catered into us, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But, back in the day, it was, Jack, you got Jack Kent Cook back then.
Yeah.
And it was one of the absolutely top, couple organizations in the NFL, and he did everything in a big way. And Joe Gibbs, I'll tell you, I can't say enough good about Joe Gibbs. He coached with Landry, who coached with Lombardi, and I got to enjoy that kind of a man, for the years I was there with him before he retired. And it was just such a great experience. And, the Redskins, they spent more money. I mean, you had better weight rooms, and you had better treatment on the road, and you had better treatment at the facility. And it was kind of nice, we get the Bengals, we went to the Super Bowl, we got 16 tickets for the game for our family. I go with the Redskins, they give us 24 tickets to the game. I mean, the players all know what's going on, right?
Yes.
And it was funny because when I played with, because a lot of us knew some of the Niners we played. Obviously, I had a few friends on the Niners.
Yeah.
Steve Young, a couple other guys, and back then. And it doesn't take you long to find out the Niners got 24 seats to the game, and we got 16. We're like, wow, come on, man!
It's just like apples and oranges, isn't it?
Yeah, it's apples and oranges. It was a huge shift for me. It was a real blessing because I just got treated so bad at the Bengals by my D-line coach. Dick LeBeau always loved me and took great care of me, and I love Dick LeBeau. And he's the one that really wanted to draft me. I mean, I found out all the inside stories, and then him and old Paul Brown, they're the two that loved me and really wanted me there. And Sam Weish did not want me there. I found out from inside management. And so he was real bitter against me from the day I showed up because he pitched Paul Brown for somebody else and LeBeau pitched for me. And when Paul Brown went with me, I had the head coach working against me the whole time I was there. It was a real weird situation for me and a tough one.
Yeah.
So getting to go, and I had my good run. I had the Super Bowl, I got to start there a couple years. And love my teammates, but I got to finish really strong with the Redskins and get treated really good.
Yep.
Right. So for me, it was a big change. But the good news for you, though, is I hear through my friends that Cincinnati's changed a lot in the organization and they've really loosened up a bit. And it's, they got nice facilities and the players are getting treated, a lot different and more big time now. And it's not walking through Spinney Field. And we had, I don't know if you remember the weight room back then.
I do.
We had the weights in between the lockers. So we had about 12 inches to get into our lockers, and the weights circled the weight room, and then we had the little chain link lockers. And I'm like, what the heck? Am I practicing, in the longest yard at the prison?
That's great. That's great.
You mentioned Steve Young. Did you play with him at BYU?
No, I came in right after him.
Right after, okay.
He was 83 was his senior year.
Okay.
86 was mine. So I walked on at a junior college in Idaho from a little small farm town. Yeah, I was a walk-on at the JC. At the JC, I made National Junior College Defensive Player of the Year, and I was the #1 recruited player in junior college football in the nation. So I could have went to Ohio State and Alabama and anywhere. And I ended up choosing BYU because it was close to home, and it was they won the national championship that year, so everything kind of fell in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to BYU instead of Ohio State and Alabama.
So you won the Outland Trophy, correct?
Yeah.
Who did you beat out that year?
Who'd you beat out that year? What's that?
You remember who you beat out that year?
Danny Noonan from Nebraska. Jerome Brown from Miami.
Okay.
Were a couple of the big names.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who else. There's a couple other big names. I can't remember their names in that era, but those were two of them.
Those are pretty big names.
They were up there up front, a
Yeah.
lot of few choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, the D-line. And
So your rise was pretty dramatic from junior college being the #1, then the Outland. Yeah. I mean, you shot up there very, very quickly. Were you coming out of high school? Obviously, were you not that highly recruited, or did you need to pack on some weight before some of those big colleges came calling?
Yeah, I went to a little high school that had 25 students in the graduating class.
Okay, yeah. That's small.
And they were going into my senior, so we had no weight room or whatever. I mean, not much. And we just bucked hay and changed pipe and dug ditch. We were on the farms and, didn't have any good programs. And I dreamed about football in my life. It was my dream and my goal. And so they were moving to 8-man football. So I transferred to a school my senior year with 100 students in the graduating class. I thought I was big time. Yeah. They had a stoplight in town. But I went and finished my senior year, didn't have any film at the high school, and nobody even knew I existed, honestly. I literally just walked into the junior college about 10 miles from that home. And I went up there, and it was one of the best junior colleges in the United States at the time. I mean, it was just a top program. And I walked into the coaches and, 6'6", 205 pounds. I was a quarterback. and told the coaches, hey, I'm good enough to play football for you. You just give me a chance. And so they let me walk on, and I moved to D-line. And then I didn't make the team that year. Well, I made it, but I was a walk-on, and they moved me to D-line. So I quit and went back, got a job at the seed mill, working and throwing grain sacks for 2 years. And I just lifted weights every night I got off work, and waited for my wife to graduate from high school. And we got married when she graduated. The month she graduated, went up to Rick's and made All-American my first year as a D lineman.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it all happened. You're right. Like 4 years before the Outland, or 3.5, whatever, I was throwing seed sacks.
That's crazy.
Being laughed at by the guys in town, and just
That's awesome.
never stopped believing for a second. But I got doing the Rocky thing, drinking raw eggs and eating until I threw up, and training all night, and just paid the price.
I'm going to have to do the movie rights to the Jason Buck story. I like that. That's some good stuff.
Yeah. I got to write my book, because there's a lot more to it than that. Obviously, a lot of heartache and death and tragedy in my family and hardship. But I honestly put it off for a few years, or quite a while, because my mom and dad are still alive, and it just hurts them, from my dad's standpoint. You know what I'm saying? It's not to disrespect him, but when you show the world, you undress yourself before the world and your family, and all the heartache and divorce and hardship and death, and your parents look at it like, they don't look that good in the story. And I don't mean it like that, but it's hard for them to hear it. And
it would be an awesome story for America to hear, because that's a pretty impressive story.
Yeah, I'm working on the book right now, and I'm gonna get it out in the next year or so.
Will there be a chapter with Tiny in it?
Hey, I'm gonna cover all the Tiny. Yeah, I'm gonna get pretty detailed on it. We'll get the all my Bengal years in there, of course, and the good and the bad of it, right? I'll tell it the way it is. Like I said, I loved my time in Cincinnati. It's just, the people were awesome. My football situation at that time, with that coaching staff, was not.
Yeah.
And it was just, I'd get home at night, and I'm like, man, my wife Roxy, I've dreamed my whole life for this moment to be here in the NFL, and I'm getting called a mother effer 9 hours a day, and just, my life is miserable. I didn't even want to go out into the practice facility, right?
Yeah.
And just abused, and by the most foul things you can't even imagine. And I had to live with that, but I'd get down on my knees and pray at night, for strength, and like I'd always lived with. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna go out swinging, and nobody's gonna drive. This dude, Urbanic, would brag to players on the team that he's gonna drive me out of the NFL. Oh, that's my D-line coach that I got to go in with.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, why did you draft me, man? If you hate me bad, why did you draft me?
He must have been Sam Weish's best friend.
Yeah, I think he thought he was winning points, Sam. And Sam was a super sharp guy, to make compliments. I loved Sam's wife and kids. They were all awesome. Sam, because they didn't know, I don't think Sam, told them those inside stories. But, Sam didn't like me, and it was obvious.
Yeah.
And then I found out why. But, to compliment Sam, I think he had an awesome offensive mind, and he was a great offensive coordinator. I don't think he was a real head coach was his gig. Mm-hmm. More of an offensive coordinator that got the head coaching job, but his leadership he had his favorites and he had those he hated. And where Joe Gibbs, man, he was just steady, and there was no favorites, and everybody toed the line, and they loved him out of respect. And, it was just true Lombardi type stuff. And
very, very cool.
And Sam was up and down, and, we'd lose a heartbreaker in overtime. And, he would freaking torture us on Monday, and then you'd lose one by 30 points, and he'd be like, hey, let's go out on sweats on Monday.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah, where'd that come from?
Right. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? But so the discipline on the Redskins under Joe Gibbs, dude, was discipline. Yeah. And nobody stepped out of line, man. Guys beeper back in the days when they're beepers.
Yeah.
Jim Johnson, he came in a meeting, and Joe, when he walked in, everybody said, hey, you have your face looking forward. You don't whisper. You don't do anything when Joe walks in the room. And boy, that room was when he walked in the room. And and this dude's beeper goes off, and the whole team room goes, oh. And he's like, Joe looks up from his podium and goes, Jimmy, you report to, so-and-so with the guy, the Grim Reaper, the cutter, and take your book. And he got up out of that meeting, and he was put on IR that day and released after the season.
Oh, wow.
All from his beeper going off.
From his beeper. That's a good story.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude, Joe Gibbs did not mess around, and everybody knew it, but they loved him. He did it in a way that wasn't, he wasn't a screamer or he didn't demean anybody. He didn't do anything like that. He just demanded, he commanded respect and then had love.
Yeah.
But, you know what I'm saying? We loved him, but he was a special man. But the Cincinnati was, like I said, when we took over that team that year, literally, guys, it was like, because the players during the strike it's like nobody had our back, right?
Yeah.
And so the coaches didn't have our back because they're trying to keep their job and, appease the owners. And, you don't blame them for that.
Yeah.
And then, but you're mad at the coaches. You're mad at the as a team. You're mad at the owners. You feel like, we got wrecked, our butts kicked in the strike because, Upshot and his planning was terrible.
Yeah.
And the owners were prepared for it. So we go crawling back in after 6 weeks, and guys were upset. And that's why I think that year just ended up, we were an awesome football team, but we only won 4 games that year because of just the anger and the disruption of all of it. And when we walked in there, man, we owned it.
Yeah.
And found a way to get through the differences. And you had the great leadership. Like I said, Munoz is one of the most world-class.
Oh, absolutely. Top notch.
Ever know. Oh, him and Montoya and, just world-class guys. And, and we all just became such good friends, even though you're, so different from different areas. I'm an Idaho kid, and, James Brooks is, Auburn, right?
Yes.
And so different. And we all just became like brothers, and we're close and really loved each other. So, that's the way I felt. We're going to win this for us. And we came out there, it was one of those just special years.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, we got the big game this weekend. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to get a prediction from one Jason Buck. What do we think about the game this weekend, and who do you got coming out on top?
I'm a Bengal, so I gotta go with the Bengals.
Well, you'd be surprised what Tim McGee just a few minutes ago said to us.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Timmy picked the Chiefs.
Can't do that.
Yeah. So who do we got, Jason?
Dude, this is blood and family. Come on, Tim. Hey, no question. Like when we're playing, dude, San Francisco would have came into Cincinnati that year and played us on our home field, they never would have touched us on our home field. I mean, we were unbeatable in Cincinnati. So hey, no question, playing the AFC Championship in Kansas City is much harder, than playing at home. And they're both exciting, right? They're both just unbelievable games to play in. But Kansas City definitely has I'd have to give them a 7-point edge or something just for the home field advantage. But if Cincinnati can come out there, and surprise them with some, great defense, the way we did with Buffalo back in the day, and just really be a stingy, hustling, flying around defense and contain Mahomes, they've got a shot at it in there. But it's most likely it's going to be, very similar to that Buffalo game, and come right down, to contain them totally is tough.
It's tough.
But, you're looking at a game, really similar to the Buffalo game, I think. And hey, I've got to go with my Bengals. So,
all right, give me a score.
It's going to be nip and tuck. Bengals by 3.
There you go. I think that's what William picked. Bengals by 3 on a McPherson field goal late.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those crazy games I would expect, but it's going to be, it's going to be high 20s, low 30s.
Okay.
I would think in the game, like a 28-31 type of game.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
I like it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Jason, I appreciate you spending time with us tonight. Hey, when you think about getting those movie rights going, you give the R&R show a call. We'd love to be a part of that.
We'll do it, man. Appreciate it. And good luck this week to all my Bengal family out there.
I appreciate it. Who day, Jason? Thanks for joining us.
Who day? All
Thank
right.
you.
We'll see you.
Yeah.